PlayStation 5. Let's crack it open and take a look and see what's going on. Okay, almost had a little bit of a panic attack because this was sitting in there so well, but our usual repair, the ripped off fan connector. We'll get it apart and get to work and see if we can get this thing fixed. I do want to do a quick power test just to make sure though. Let's make sure everything is operational. Okay, as you can see, it is powering on. It did not give me the blue LED lighting, which has confused me a little bit, but we're turning on, we're powering on, we'll shut it off and get to work. For your orientation purposes, we'll be working on this side of the board when we're working on the fan connector area, and then here, because we always have to fix the liquid metal. We have the board out of the housing, and we're preparing to work on our area here, but in order to do some of this work, I will need to set up my equipment, and while I set up my equipment, let me throw up my expected temperatures for this job. These temperatures are brought to you by the associate links in the description. If you go to my video description and click on one of these links and buy any of this equipment, a small portion of that purchase will go to supporting the channel. And I greatly appreciate you. It won't cost you an extra dime. Okay, let's have a look at our damage here. And it's not the worst I've ever seen. We have a lot of trace to work with still. So I think I'm still just going to run a jumper from this via. I have attempted to just replace the pad once and I ended up having to remove the connector. Had all sorts of problems. We know the jumper's going to work, so we'll do that. We'll cut off this loose floppy part, and then we'll just run our pads from here and from here, and then we'll replace our anchor pads. That's going to be the plan. Let's get to scraping and cutting. And just use the scraper to cut through all this loose stuff. And go at a higher speed so get this stuff off. I'm usually on the lowest setting, but to get this loose stuff off, I want to get a little more action going here. Okay, got it off. That'll work. Change our lighting for the rest of this so that we can see things a little better. Scrape ourselves a runway for a new trace or pad. We're going to make this one rather long because we can. The more area we can solder to, the more solid our pad will be. Same with this one. We're going to make it long. This is ground here, so we will be soldering it on both sides. And we're not going to worry about that pad there. We're just going to get the via here scraped off all the way around, but we do not want to scrape that via. It has nothing to do with the circuit. But we could short the whole system if we accidentally scraped it off and tied it to ground. And this one up here we have to be a little bit careful with too. I'm going to cut off this loose stuff as well. I'm going to scrape around. Do not want to make contact with this circuit though. This is a ground, that is not. Anything that's isolated is isolated for a reason. Make sure it stays that way. All off the board. Looks like we'll need to do a little bit more. The dust can obscure what you're doing, and you want to get as much of the solder mask off here as you can. Solder will not stick to mask, so any little bit in your area is going to cause you a problem. We could actually go around that via as long as we don't make contact with it. Doesn't matter if we solder a pad over that via, as long as there's solder mask on it. Add some flux, and then we'll tin our new solder points here. Okay, add some solder. Use the big boy for our initial tinning here. And grab ourselves some copper tape, precision scissors. Let's go ahead and do our ground points first. So I would like this to be enough for both of them. Okay. Let's cut that like so. Put one here, put one here. I think that'll work out. Add some flux. Switch to our micro pencil. Add some solder. And we're tinning the side without adhesive. That will be the side we put down. We are not using copper tape for the adhesive properties. We're using it because it's convenient and a very thin sheet of copper. There are different methods for doing this. I'm sharing with you my method, like solder wick and stuff of that nature, that work fine as well. There are lots of people who use those methods, so investigate other repair channels to see the other methods. That is super solid. Add some flux to this one. Get him moved somewhere safe to tin. If we tin in the wrong area, we'll end up soldering where we don't want to. I figured out early in this method that tinning them and then putting them in the tin side down greatly strengthens the joint. I mean, if you think about it, of course it makes sense, but you don't figure it out until you figure it out. Super solid and more than arguably stronger than factory. Okay, now we need to do our pads. We'll be doing 2 of these for here and here. 1, 2. Those may be a little on the thick side. We don't want them making contact with each other. This work does require the steady hand on occasion. That's better. Now I'm going to run this long, so I'll probably end up soldering it like right about there. Though it's not necessary. I need to tin it first. The reason why we don't tin or pre-tin using the adhesive side is because the adhesive gets messy and sticky, and you'd have to clean the adhesive off before you could solder, and it's just easier to clean it off after you soldered it down using the non-adhesive side. You know what? I think we'll just go all the way onto the pad. Use the full strength of that pad. Yep. Do need it to be straight though. I think that'll work. What we'll do on this side is we'll put some UV solder mask right over on this side a little bit, just to hold it down. We cannot scrape on this side to solder it down because, again, this is isolated for a reason. Let's trim this guy. Not too much, but not too little. Okay, I think that will work. As long as we're not too wide on that side. We do not want to make contact with anything around it. I think that'll be fine. And we'll come down a little bit on that one because we need to solder it on both sides. Solder that side first. Solid. So our next step is going to be to clean these up and get all that adhesive off. It's better to do that before you run the jumper because you're not fatiguing the wire on the jumper while you're trying to clean all this off. We are cleaning off the adhesive now with the alcohol. The alcohol will get rid of it. This may take some patience. Don't scrub too hard and knock off other parts and cause yourself other problems, but scrub hard enough to get rid of it. Switch irons to our Pico pencil. Add a little bit of flux. See if we can't get a little bit more solder on that via. There we go. That's what we want, kind of a ball. Scrape and burn our wire. I'm going to attempt it in this orientation, but I may need to change. To a more comfortable one. I can also switch hands if need be. Yes, I generally can solder with both hands. I actually started soldering with my left hand, but I found I wasn't precise enough with my tweezers, and I actually need more precision with my tweezers than I do with my soldering iron, so I had to train myself to solder with my right hand. Well, we now have our jumper wire on. We'll need to gently clean now. We didn't use that much flux, so we should be okay. With the wire, just get the rest of that flux out of there. Take a closer look at this joint. I'm not sure I'm a fan of it. I think we're going to try to touch that up. I don't think I'm being anal here. You definitely want that to be in the solder. Here's where the problems with my lack of precision come in with this hand. There we go. That's a solid G. So like I said, yeah, I find it's more critical for me to be precise with the tweezers than the iron. I'm happier with that. I'm left-handed as far as writing, naturally, but I'm ambidextrous otherwise. I typically use my right hand for everything else, but because I was an illustrator for a while, most of my precision is in my writing hand. Again, I'm always looking for some clear coat. I thought about using just clear coat nail polish at some point. I may try that, assuming it doesn't smell like garbage. I think you could find some without scent in it. I do think it would look better with clear. I tried to get the mechanic supposedly clear stuff, but it looked like a biohazard more than clear. I'm not worried about accidentally covering parts. This stuff scrapes off very easily. And we definitely want the solder joints covered. The UV solder mask is going to act as sort of a helping hand. When we go to solder the connector back on, the solder joints will wet when we're applying heat. Heat will travel through those pads, wetting the solder underneath them. And they could float or they could get sucked into the connector. Surface tension works for you and against you sometimes. So we're putting this around it and we're going to cure it into a rock hard form so that these pads will not move at all. Yeah, it's not pretty, but the connector viability is more important. And again, if y'all have recommendations for clear solder mask, I do believe that would actually look better. Leave a comment, let me know. Don't recommend the mechanic stuff, I've already looked at it. Okay, I think we're ready for a cure. Grabbed our lamp, click it on, set it in place, and walk away. And just leave it be for 20, 30 minutes, whatever it takes to get a rock solid cure. Go do something else. I hope you're getting value out of this video. Just a reminder, if you find you're not ready to tackle this, I do offer these services, both locally and mail-in. Just head over to micromage.repair, click free quote, fill out the form, and I'll get back to you personally. If you mention this video, I'll give you 10% off on your repair. Alright, our cure looks quite solid. Everything is well secured. We do need to do a little bit of scraping for this one and this one. So I want to make sure those pins have plenty of area to solder to. Gently clean. We still have the jumper to worry about. Okay, let me grab that connector and see how we align. Need to clean the connector off, but I want to make sure I can solder those two pins, and I do think we can. Clean off their connector, remove our ripped off pads. I know in some other repairs I have reused pads, but in this particular case that's not really viable. Be a little bit stubborn to get off sometimes. The idea is to get them off without doing too much damage. Now we need to tin our new pads. Grab our connector. I do have these connectors in stock and I could use a new one, but the old one is not compromised in any way, so no need to waste. Okay. As good as I can get it for this round. The rest of it done. We'll come back to it. Unfortunately, it is a little too far in this direction, which is going to make soldering difficult on the pins. So I need to bring it back. Not sure I still even like that positioning. We're at a point where it doesn't hurt to adjust. Okay, I like that better. I like it better, but it's not great. It's not perfect. I need to come over this direction a little bit. And we're back in the position we didn't want to be in. Being a little bit fiddly. I'm running out of flux and the solder is not where I need it to be. I think that's all right. I feel like I'm going to have to do some scraping on those pads to solder those pins down, but I should be okay. Go ahead and hit the other anchor. Finish off this one. Okay. So we should be very solid right at this point. So what I may do here is go ahead and solder this jumper, as I'm going to need to do some more prep work around those others to get them to solder right. A little out of order what I'd normally do, but I don't want to mess around with that jumper. If I'm going to have to do some scraping, that means I'm going to have to do some cleaning. So let's go ahead and take care of our jumper issue now. I would like to get a couple of wraps in here. I am not overly committed to that. I'm more concerned with not breaking the jumper or ripping it off the board, especially at this point. Looks like we might get about 3 of them though. That's nice. Probably could get more, but I ain't trying to get crazy here. More flux. Solder our wire down. Dry, nice and solid. We can break off the excess. Okay, now I can do my scraping. And cleaning safely. I just want to get the dust off there. Get some more flux. Solder our pins. Okay. I like it. Feels solid. And the test we always like to perform. Can I pick up the board using our new connector? Yes. I am picking up the board using the connector. That is solid. Let's clean up and we'll come back for final inspection. Final look. Again, not pretty, but absolutely solid. Another problem to deal with before we can plug it in and see what's going on. Well, luckily it's cleaning up very easily this time. We need to grab all this stuff on the sides. It's doing absolutely no good over there. Sure, Sony would like some tape back these on this technology. The design of the console itself, at least. Turns out having a console that sits on its side with liquid metal is not such a great plan. Good enough. Let's take a look at the heatsink. Mixed. Same corresponding spot. Hopefully it will clean up just as easy. And it did. Yay! Again, though, the liquid metal being off to the side isn't doing our die much help. Spread that around a little bit. Good enough. Okay, moment of truth. Fan spin. Logo. We'll get it back together and give it one more final test, but I think we have succeeded. Go from there. We've reassembled. Let's give it one more test. Fan spin. Logo. Happiness. If you got value out of this video, I think you'll get value out of this one, and I'll see you there. Till then, have a blessed day.